You know, they just don't make them like they used to. In my hands, I have a 1070 Ti and a 1080 Ti. And both of these cards were sent to me by a subscriber of the channel, Thomas. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, man. Now, Thomas did not want me to give him a shout out. He just said, send a message that the PC community can still be amazing, even in really bad times. That was very noble of you, and the PC community can still be amazing, even in awful GPU pricing times and all of that stuff. But I started looking into the specifications of these cards, and it really didn't dawn on me until I actually got to use the card, look at some of the numbers. So check this out. The 1070 Ti, it came out in 2017, November the 2nd, 2017, and the price was only $399. And it launched with 8 gigabytes of VRAM. 8 gigabytes. That was 2017. I want you to think about that for a second. Today we're in 2023 and we're still getting brand new cards, the RTX 4060 for $300 with 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Nvidia is still pushing the 8 gigabyte narrative. That is so crazy to me. It's like, come on, it's been 6 years already. There needs to be a new standard. And then of course you have the 1080 Ti. Now this guy is the GOAT, right? It's the king. The 1080 Ti released March the 10th, 2017 for a price point of $699, and it launched with 11 gigabytes of VRAM. Now, even though these cards are old, I still had the privilege of actually unboxing them and getting that experience because Thomas took very good care of these cards. It has all the original packaging, even the original plastic that covers the cards. The original manuals are inside the box, and it was honestly a treat for me. So thank you, Thomas, again so much. Now, that's honestly one of the best parts about being a content creator is that I can build a community and actually engage with all of you in the comment section or over on Discord or Twitter even. And a lot of you have really jumped on board to help me build what we're building here. We're getting very close to 10,000 subscribers, and I say thank you for that. A lot of you are starting to join the Patreon, which I cannot say thank you enough for that. I really can't. And by the way, if you're on Patreon, all today's benchmarks have already been uploaded individually to the Patreon page, so you could have seen this a couple of days ago. And of course, we have people like Thomas and even people like Eternal sending me GPUs for review. Sometimes I can keep them, sometimes I have to send them back, but either way, it helps me make content that otherwise would not get made on my channel. So you guys as a community, you're rock solid, you're totally awesome, and I am so grateful to you for all of your support. So thank you so very much. Really, I mean that. And so today I thought it would be cool to take a look at the 1070 Ti and the 1080 Ti in 2023 and see how well they stack up. There's no ray tracing, there's no DLSS, there is no frame generation or anything like that. This is good old-fashioned raw horsepower, native rendering. Taking a look at 5 different games at 1080p and 1440p. Most of the games will be ran at medium settings unless stated otherwise. And you may be surprised to find out that even in 2023, these cards still stack up somewhat decently. I mean, they're able to run some of the latest and greatest games at playable frame rates and resolutions and graphics and all that stuff. It's not the best experience by any means at all. There's definitely a lot left to be desired here, but if it's all you can get your hands on, you can definitely make do with it. Now for the benchmarks, I did something I probably shouldn't have done, and that is I actually used the encoders built into these cards. So that means you're going to see the recording and see all the numbers and everything that matters, but it's going to be not as clear as it could be otherwise, and so I do apologize for that. But hey, it's the numbers that matter, it's the performance results that matter, and so all of that information will be legible on the screen. Now before the benchmarks, if there's anything you don't like in this video, for your convenience, I always put chapters, aka timestamps, down below, so you can skip ahead to the part that you are the most interested in. And now first, a quick word from today's sponsor and then the benchmarks. Today's video is brought to you by Maono. Maono is an audio company and they are best known for their microphones, but they do offer more than just microphone options. They have audio interfaces, they have audio packages, they have condenser microphones, they have dynamic microphones, they even have lavalier microphones. They offer microphone boom arms, pop filters, and even headsets. Whether if you're looking for a podcasting audio setup or a gaming audio setup, Maono has you covered. And right now they're running their Prime Day deals where you can get $40 off on select products. And on top of all of that, Maono is an award-winning audio company. You can find them in 153 plus different countries. They have over 7 years of experience. They have over 16 million users worldwide. They know what they're doing. So if you're looking for new audio equipment, I'll have a link down below in both the description and the pinned comment, so check them out. Okay, now we're back, and now let's go ahead and get into today's benchmarks. I will have my test bench on the screen right now. You can see how everything was tested with the exact hardware, and now let's go ahead and start things off with Call of Duty. Okay, starting things off with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, I ran the in-game benchmark, and right now we're running at 1440p on the balanced preset, and you can see the 1070 Ti is averaging just under 40 FPS, whereas the 1080 Ti is right around 50 FPS, and the temperatures are pretty good. It's in the low 40s. Unfortunately, the VRAM usage and the GPU usage is not accurate, as well as the GPU clocks, because MSI Afterburner is not used to working with this old of hardware, or at least the version I have isn't. But yes, as you can see, 1440p on these cards for Call of Duty, even on the balanced preset, is probably not what you're looking for. And the final numbers are 42 FPS on average for the 1070 Ti and 52 FPS on average for the 1080 Ti. Next up is 1080p, again on the balanced preset. Now things are looking a little bit better. The average on the 1070 Ti is under 60 FPS, but we are in the 50s, and we are getting closer and closer to the 60 FPS marker as the benchmark goes on. And for the 1080 Ti, the average is 70 FPS, so we are able to get above that 60 FPS threshold. And again, the temperatures are in the low 40s, and the 1% lows are lower than what we would want them to be, but it is still a playable frame rate. And the final numbers for the 1070 Ti is 57 FPS, and for the 1080 Ti, it is 73 FPS. Next up is Assassin's Creed Valhalla, 1440p, medium preset with the in-game benchmark. The 1070 Ti is averaging between 46 and 48 FPS currently, and it is quickly approaching 50 FPS. The 1080 Ti is averaging over 60 FPS. Right now, we are hovering around 65 FPS, and the temperatures are still quite low in the low 40s, and so all of this is a pretty good sign. So even at 1440p with a 1080 Ti, you can get over 60 frames per second. Now switching things over to 1080p on the medium preset, the 1070 Ti is averaging 65 frames per second, whereas the 1080 Ti is now at 85 FPS. This is definitely more than playable on both of these cards at 1080p. And Assassin's Creed Valhalla is overall a pretty demanding game, even in 2023, even though it is now a couple of years old. And I think it's quite impressive with how well these cards are able to run this game. Next up is CyberPunk 2077, 1440p, medium preset. The 1070 Ti is averaging 38 FPS, and the 1080 Ti is averaging 35 FPS. I don't know how this is even remotely possible. I do think there is something wrong here with the benchmark, but I checked it and double checked it multiple times. Either way, if you're trying to play a game like CyberPunk 2077, I don't think 1440p is where you should be. Now switching over to 1080p, again on the medium preset, now we see what we would expect. The 1070 Ti is averaging 41 FPS, whereas the 1080 Ti is averaging 58 FPS. And so as we would expect, the 1080 Ti is outperforming the 1070 Ti, and the 1080 Ti is getting us closer to that 60 FPS marker that we so desire, but unfortunately we come just shy of it. And the 1070 Ti is only a little bit above 30 FPS, but it is still playable. Now switching things over to God of War 2018, and I ran this on 1440p at the original graphics preset, and I do think original means PlayStation 4 graphics. And so on the original graphical preset, the 1070 Ti at 1440p is averaging 44 FPS, and the 1080 Ti at 1440p is averaging 59 FPS. And so I would definitely say God of War 2018 is absolutely playable in 2023 with a 1070 Ti and a 1080 Ti, even at 1440p. But now switching things over to 1080p, we can see the 1070 Ti rises up to about 57 to 58 FPS on average, and the 1080 Ti has an average FPS of 60 FPS. Now, I'll be honest, once again, I think something weird was going on with the benchmark here. I checked the settings multiple times. My frame rate was unlocked. My monitor was set to be 155 FPS. I have no idea why the 1080 Ti was basically hard locked at 60 FPS here for God of War. I'm not really sure what the root cause of that was, but the fact remains you can absolutely play God of War 2018 in 2023, whether if you have a 1070 Ti or a 1080 Ti. And now for our final game, we're looking at Spider-Man Remastered at 1440p on the high preset. Spider-Man Remastered on the PC PC is incredibly optimized. And because of that, even older hardware like this on the high preset scales incredibly well. You can see the 1070 Ti is averaging 48 FPS and the 1080 Ti is averaging 58 FPS. So we are so close to that magical average of 60 FPS. And at one point in the benchmark, we actually hit 60 FPS, and I think we finished around the 60 FPS marker. And now switching things over to 1080p, again on the high preset, the 1070 Ti is now averaging above 60 FPS, and the 1080 Ti is now averaging above 70 FPS. In fact, we're at 76 FPS and getting very close to 80 FPS on average. And so all of this is incredibly positive for these two cards when you consider the fact that Spider-Man Remastered released on the PC in August of 2022. And so that's it for the benchmarks. I know this video might not have been all that informative. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. And it's definitely a video I would not normally have made otherwise. But because Thomas was so kind to donate these two cards to me, I decided to make use of them. And so I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comment section below. Do you have a 1070 Ti, a 1080 Ti, a 1060, anything like that? Did you ever have those kind of cards? Were they good cards for you? And overall, just what do you think about these two cards in 2023? I'm very curious to know your thoughts below. If you don't mind, please do me a favor. If you like the video, please hit that like button because it goes a long way in helping me out. If you're new, get subscribed, drop a comment down below, and let's talk about these two cards. And until next time, E-Rock out.